his wife at the time was my English teacher at school, and I wasn't game to call him Carl. I had to call him Mr. Ditteridge. I had to call his wife Mrs. Ditteridge, so I got the Mr. Ditteridge out on the training track. How do you do, Mr. Ditteridge, when I got introduced, all that sort of stuff.
In mid-1973, Ridley took the punt and blooded a skinny youngster named Robert Flower. He would become the longest-serving player in the club's history and one of its favourite sons.
Well, I remember getting announced in the side on the Thursday night and going to school the next day with a picture in the paper, getting reading Macbeth, then going to the football, not having met any of the senior players, and I'd only trained with the under-19, so to get promoted in the first was quite a thing. Mum and Dad had to drive me in, being 17 years of age, didn't have a licence, so got to the ground, then Mum and Dad and myself had to pay to get in, and then introduce ourselves at the door to try and get in the change rooms with the doorman, and then Barry Burke grabbed hold of me and took me around the rooms, introduced me to all the players, and they all looked at me with it couldn't be serious having this guy playing for you, the way I was, thin and hardly any character at all.
Well, when Robbie came into the room, I thought he was a supporter coming in to get autographs. He was like a shotgun pull-through. And he was tall, thin, he wore glasses, and one of the committee men brought him up to me and they said, "This is Robbie Flower. He's playing his first game at the Melbourne Football Club today." And I said, "Oh, you're kidding, aren't you?" And I really didn't believe it. But anyway, he went on, he played that day, and we had a luncheon or a dinner that night, and Ian really got up and he said, this is $20 being donated by a Coterian, and it's going to Robbie Flower, who played his first game today because he was magnificent.
Taking into account poise, ability, skill, marking, kicking, handballing, it doesn't matter what you refer to, but Robert Flower is the greatest footballer that I have seen in my life.
Up towards the half-forward flank, gets a long hand pass across here towards Woodman gives it back towards Carroll. Here's a shot at goal coming up as Carroll puts it on its way. That's the best passage of play by Melbourne.
We really had momentum flowing, and it got to the last game of the year out at Collingwood, and Collingwood, I think, it was a history-making season for them, because for us to beat them, put them as wooden spooners, and I think the only time that, well, up until then, that they'd had that honour, so to speak. We'd had it many times, of course, but we went out there and we expected to win. Laurie Fowler got knocked out in the first minute of play, carried off on a stretcher, and couldn't go back on because there wasn't interchange in those days. But we ended up winning the game, and we thought would have made it, because we expected Carlton to be victors in their match, but they weren't to be. And it was funny because the Collingwood supporters actually started singing the Footscray song halfway, or almost at the end of the last quarter, sensing that we weren't going to make the finals, and they couldn't have cared less about them being on the bottom.
In 1980, Robbie Flower was providing the grace. Others were providing the muscle.
When Tiger came along, you didn't know what to expect. And I thought, well, he's got this nickname Tiger because he's such a ferocious character. He's one that you'd fear out in the football field and maybe off the football field as well. But he didn't get his nickname from that, but he just didn't know anyone's name. He'd introduce and go, "G'day, Tiger, how are you?" Because he couldn't remember your name. That regardless of who you were. History would show that any game that Carl wasn't involved in, we didn't win. We hadn't won a game without him actually playing out on the arena when he was involved. But be coach of the side, he was a tough man, really tough. Hard expectations on the training track and make sure that we're doing the right thing. And I think it's hard in anyone's book to be a captain coach of a side. And probably the 2 years there told a story. If he had his time again, I'm sure he would have retired from playing and become just a coach out and out.
So, no, Brassy, I think in that year went...
The coach, I think it was Carl at the time, might have called a meeting in the coach's room, and we're dripping wet after the thing, and everyone called for the dressing gowns so we wouldn't catch the death of cold, and someone yelled at the Tiger to go and get the dressing gowns. And he's looked around, he's going, "What? Me? 254 games, 3 grand finals, 4 best and fairest, and you want me to get the dressing gowns?" So he's called out to Wellesley, "You get the dressing gowns." He was captain at the time, so it was quite unique. He just couldn't imagine him doing anything like that. He was one man that came to the club that he'd walk into the rooms without carrying a kit bag. He'd leave his boots, his He's all his gear there for to be cleaned by the property steward, everything. All he come with a towel under his arm. That was his training gear. Calvin Moore said to him, you'll never kick this goal as long as your backside points to the ground. He did the handstand and said, well, it's not pointing to the ground, son. And Calvin Moore, as you see at the film clip, just looks around in disbelief.
It was unbelievable that day, but I just looked at the film clip before and looked at when Shane was involved in that, and I did notice myself come in, and I didn't look at Barassi. I looked the other way, and I thought, oh, well, that must have been the reason when he said, look me in the eye, and I thought, well, I'll get Shane out of here and look after him and bugger Barassi.
His professionalism on the football field, I think what he did, he planted a lot of seeds for the club to grow. And whilst we didn't have the success in the era that he was there, he put those seeds there for future coaching, and it gave all the players that were under him at the time a stepping stone to the level of success that we had in the year 87 onwards, really. And I put that down to Barras and what he did in his 5 years at Melbourne.
Acting captain Danny Hughes accepted Melbourne's first trophy since the 1971 night premiership. Alongside him, the injured Robbie Flower.
We'd been striving for it for so long, and to finally get it as a club, as people have worked hard for it on and off the field, and the supporters have been there through very thin times in the late 70s, mid 80s, that they deserved it, and that's what I was so proud of.
Melbourne had won 5 games in a row when it ventured to the Western Oval for the final round of the 1987 season, regarded by many as the best round of football in league history. It had to win and needed Geelong to beat Hawthorn at Cardinia Park.
Out to Stretch. From near the boundary line, what a kick! Chance for Jackson.
Flower with 3 goals, Melbourne by 15 points.
Melbourne in front.
Look, that game there was a highlight of my career, and a highlight because you strive for so much in a football career. In the early part of your career, I probably thought, well, being here is a great thing. Once you're there and you're cemented into a side, the next thing is to have success. So our success was to make the finals, and that game out at Footscray was the achievement and the culmination of all that hard work throughout the years to actually get to the finals.
In its first final series for 23 years, Melbourne eliminated North Melbourne by 118 points. Flower kicked 5. It would be the end for Robert Flower. A record 272 games of sheer class, 127 of them as captain.
Spoil was on down there by Flower, a successful one. Davis coming in, tapping it cleverly out towards Flower. Lines up the goals from 35 metres out, puts it on its way. It's not a bad attempt.
There's a foul, a beautiful play by Magnificent football. What a beautiful bit of play on the part of the Melbourne Jam.
Looking at these old shots makes you wonder how he survived one game, let alone 272. No man has played more games for the Melbourne Football Club than Robert Flower. Over 15 seasons, we were treated to the grace and elegance of a man born to play the game. Not the biggest and far from the strongest, Robbie Flower took football to a new level. His record is substantial, and while it may lack in finals appearances, there are 7 years at the helm of the club, dual All-Australian representation, 7 years wearing the big V, the state captaincy, and a best and fairest. Yet Robbie Flower was much more. In those dark days of the 70s and 80s, he embodied all the hope supporters could muster, and how often he delivered.
Wells, it's too long, but a good mark taken in his Flower. Flower goes up very quickly to go for a long run, trying to get him down the cross, who's getting a bit of trouble. Now he's clear, but there's no one there to kick it to down the full forward zone, I'm not kidding. Now he's found...
There's a wide hand pass, finds Robbie Flower. A left foot kick from Flower going goalward, a beautiful kick. The ball back now, across up the ground, a poor kick from Roberts, finds Flower. Flower going goalward for Melbourne. It's a beautiful kick from Flower. It's Flower. A chance to kick his third left foot goal. Puts it on his right foot and put it right through the centre.
A beautiful play by Magnificent football. What a beautiful bit of play on the
out all night. Full marks to Essendon also. Great performance. Let's go down the ground to Peter G.
Yes, and there's Robbie Flower. Incidentally, but down there to Peter G.
There's so much noise.
Amazing scenes down here with Robbie Flower showered in champagne. Rod Green